Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense. Welcome back to the Equine Vet Connect podcast here at Countryside Equine Hospital. We've got a little bit of a different episode today. Most of the time we're talking about vet care and horses and different conditions, but let's talk about a condition that we're going to talk about something today that's sort of fundamental to equine health and really just horses in general, and that's going to be real estate. Mm-hmm. So I've got two people here with me today. I've got Courtney Ariola. She's with Keller Williams, the Rhonda Smith Team, and I've got Jake Willcox with Realty out of Oglethorpe County. And today what we're going to talk about is we call it so you want to buy a horse property. And there's a lot that goes into this because I go to a lot of horse properties. Mm-hmm. Some of them are horse properties. Mm-hmm. Some of them are not horse properties. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of ins and outs when people decide they want to get into they want to get a small farm. They want to have horses at home. And there's a lot of things that go into this. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So let's start off. Courtney, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So let's see, I live in Bostwick. I, have mostly sell farms, land. Let's see, what else? Let me think. We team rope. Me and Jake, we team rope together. Me and my husband, we have a farm there at the house, and horses, cattle. It's what I love. I love promoting agriculture. I think that it's important to keep our agriculture, and I love for the Morgan County area especially. I love to just show off. I do a thing where it's keep the dirt, where I showcase the agriculture that is being produced there in Morgan County just to try to get people familiar. I think it's important that we build the bridge between the people that have been there and the people that are coming, and that they familiarize themselves with our way of life and why they want to move here, So I think it's important to keep our agriculture. So
because for a lot of our listeners out there, we're about an hour east of Atlanta. We're probably not even that far. Maybe we say an hour because you never know what traffic's going to be. So we're just east of Atlanta. So there's a lot of people that are moving this way. So, and then we got Jake. Jake, kind of interesting. I met you about 20 years ago when I was in vet school. I just thought I'd throw that out there so you can feel old too.
Yeah.
It's been that long, Jake.
Yeah, it has. It has. Yeah. So, we definitely went through Georgia together. You were in vet school. I was in ag business there.
Right.
And I guess we graduated about the same time. I was 09.
I think so. 09.
Yeah. So 09, great time to graduate.
I think so.
The economy was fantastic. There were jobs abound.
I mean, couldn't help but fall into a great job. Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah. That's what I tell people. It turned out pretty well for me. Mm-hmm. I was done with school when I was done with school.
I agree.
You know what I mean? I was not a master's kind of guy. My wife just got her, she has a page and a half long of degrees that she has to be a school teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's still getting them. We're, almost 40 years old and she's still getting them. And I wasn't that guy. Mm-hmm. And so I went into clowning rodeos. Mm-hmm. Was my main gig. Clowning rodeos, and my dad had a fence business that we still operate today. And so, for 12 years, we went up and down the road 45 weekends a year. Mm-hmm. Upwards of 125 performances a year.
Wow.
Doing some rodeos, and then I'd work the stockyards and build fence during the week. And then it was always kind of my goal when I was in school. The reason I started in ag engineering, which was a horrible, horrible mistake for somebody who doesn't like school. And I went to agribusiness because what I always wanted to do was auctions and real estate.
Right.
And that was kind of the long-term goal. My goal was longer term than I thought it might be. So I guess it's been about 6 years ago now. I got my real estate license, and I'd gotten my auctioneer's license. I still worked some cow sales and auctioneer a few sales. And so when I got my real estate license, I stayed mostly close to home right there. And then we had the COVID thing happen.
Right.
And for those that don't know, rodeo and anything crowd-related entertainment went away for at least a year, if not 2 years, which was kind of a good thing. We had twin boys that year. They were born in 2020, and that was a good reason to stay closer to home. Living on the road isn't really a way to do family.
No, it's a tough way to go. For
Yeah.
anybody that hadn't tried it, it's tough.
My wife's a good woman, but I don't know how much she'd put up with twin boys at home with me going off to rodeos somewhere, because we were going pretty good. But so real estate got heavier for me, and I feel like I've built a pretty good brand there, especially my hometown. We have a real growing real estate market there in Oglethorpe County, being just east of Athens there. We get a good bit of UGA overflow. We have a lot of farmland. It's an agricultural community, it's one of the largest land area counties in the state. And, it's like we tell people all the time, land, there's 6 billion people in the world and growing, and they hadn't made any more land since the third day or fourth day the Lord created the earth and stars, so there's as much land as there's ever going to be. And so we're seeing a good growth there. And we sell a lot of farms, sell a lot of small farms,
right?
A lot of small horse farms, small acreage stuff. It has been a real popular hot ticket item for us. We also sell some bigger land tracts, so we got a good variety.
Well, let's talk about that, because this is something, I feel like in the days, now with Zillow, Realtor.com, all these different web apps and everything that you're always hearing about, sometimes I think what gets lost is what does an agent bring to the table? Because I'll be honest, when I first started buying land and buying some houses and things like that, I was like, what do I next need an agent for? And then I realized really quickly there is a lot of value in an agent. So let's talk about what does let's approach it from the buyer side, because everybody always thinks about if they're going to sell, get a seller's agent. That's still really popular. But on the buyer side, let's talk about what that buyer's agent brings to the table and what a real estate agent actually does for you.
The largest transaction most people ever make in their life with money is real estate.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just really as simple as that. I mean, the next closest thing that you could even begin to compare it to is if somebody buys a new truck nowadays. And I mean, you're talking about spending $90,000 to $100,000 on a new truck. And when you talk about that, you talk about that industry, you have a, I don't want to know what you want to call it, but they have a name out there of, being like a used car salesman. And there's some people that, leave the table when they get done buying this $90,000 or $100,000 truck. And they're like, man, did I get a good deal or not?
Right.
Was I taken care of, or did the guy selling me the truck make a bunch of money and I got this thing, and as soon as I drove it off the lot, it went down 20%. When the biggest, and you talk about that, and then you start talking about, $90,000 or $100,000 for a truck, you start talking about, property's starting out $300,000.
That's vacant dirt.
Yeah.
Trees.
$300,000, $400,000, $1 million is not hard to spend in real estate.
No,
anymore.
it is not.
And, I've doctored a lot of calves in my life, hundreds of them. I'm not a vet.
Right.
When I have something going on with one or with a horse, I'm calling Dan. I'm calling a vet to come check that out. You do this every day. I can call you and tell you something that I probably struggled with on a calf for a week, 10 days, and you could tell me, if you'd done this on day one,
we'd be better.
We'd be better off.
Right.
And maybe he's on the mend, and instead of being on the mend, I might have buried him. When you start talking about real estate, it's the same thing. what Courtney and I do every day. From the moment we wake up and first check our phone until too late at night sometimes, it is real estate. It's the things that pop up on my logarithm on social media. It's the lenders that I deal with every day. It's the people that I talk to every day. It's what I get in my truck and go do every day.
Because it's a process. Courtney, you helped me with the track of dirt, and it's a process getting this. There's a lot of pitfalls that can happen when you are buying real estate that I never thought about. The most buyers are not going to think about. And if you can avoid those before you get to the table, that's
well, and you've got your listing agent who's going to represent, their fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. So, where does that leave the buyer at? And so they're going to, being that they're the listing agent, they're going to do their best to get the seller the most money. Where a buyer's agent who's going to represent you, you know, and so we're going to try to save you as much, and then however that, you know, works that way. But I think that it is important because we have a team that we have relationships with between lenders, closing attorneys. I mean, I know, like with our situation, the closing attorney saved our butts on some things, and it was, hey, Friday at 5 o'clock, hey, I got a deal. What can I do? Help me, you know. And he's like, got it, Court, no problem. And so, you know, we build a team and we build trusting relationships with them, and I think that's another thing that brings value as a buyer's agent that we can help you with. We can come alongside of you, help you with the emotional part of it, you know, because we're just trying to, hey, we're good. We're going to, you know, we're going to keep cruising.
That's a huge, emotional part of it is a huge part.
I think about when I bought my house, like literally it came down to the wire, and it was $600 is what's keeping this deal from going through.
Right.
And I almost blew the whole deal up over $600.
Right.
If it hadn't been for the buyer's agent at that time, my agent talking me off the ledge.
Right.
And I did the same thing later on I was buying a rental house, and it came down to $400, and I was about to blow the whole deal up because sometimes
you got to keep the bigger picture.
Sometimes my redneck carnal nature is as they put it, gets in the way, and so having that person, and then
well, the devil's in the details too. I mean, it doesn't always boil down to money,
right?
I mean, when you're buying a piece of property, I mean, do you is it going to be able to fit the needs that you want to do? Can you have future expansion? Can you split this property? I mean, there's just
building equity,
I mean, there's so many things that go into buying a property. Money, I don't want to say money is what everybody does for everything, right? I mean, it's the root of all evil. But money is not the only thing.
Well, and that's one of the things that when you're looking for a real estate agent, to me, it can get a little specific. Like one of the things that y'all bring to the table is y'all are in the horse business. Y'all know horses. You know what you need to be able to have horses. Right. I mean, you understand, can we put a fence here? Can we not? Is there a place to build a barn? Is there not? Do you have pasture? Do you not? All right, so this property's cheap, but it's covered in trees. You got to clear that. And y'all know those ins and outs. Right. And I think that's really important when you're looking for that realtor to represent you when you're looking for that property is have somebody that understands your needs. And that's a unique thing that both of y'all bring to the table is understanding the needs of a horse owner, because y'all are horse owners. Yeah. So
I mean, you will see property that's listed and it's like, oh, it's got 10 acres, great horsepower. I'm like, it's woods.
Right.
Like, what are they going to eat?
My favorite is when they have horse property potential.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every property has horse property potential.
I mean, downtown Atlanta with a skyscraper is horse property potential. You just got to move the skyscraper.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about a few things when you're looking at a property and you're trying to sort out, is this going to make it or not? What are some of the things that you look for and you tell people we need to look for this, or I guess kind of some of the pitfalls? I want to get into that and when you're looking for this first horse property. I mean, mine as a vet is just don't put the barn at the bottom of the hill, because I don't know why, but
everybody puts
enough, everybody
so you can keep lean-tos.
They put the barn at the bottom of the hill and put 19 gates, so to get there is an ordeal.
Right.
That's what I noticed being. I was a farrier first, and it's like every 6 weeks I come in here. Every time it rains, I can't get here.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, what are some of the pitfalls that y'all see that you've run into over the years, and things that you see as important? So
my approach has always been, I tell people all the time when I start working with them, we're in the problem-solving business. We're not really in the real estate business. We're not. Have you ever seen the documentary on the guy that started McDonald's or owns McDonald's? And the guy tells him, "You're not in the hamburger business. You're in the real estate business."
Yes,
because he's trading. Okay, so I don't really feel like we're in the real estate business. We're in the problem-solving business. And so I ask so many questions, especially with buyers. You got money, and then you've got, setup. Are you willing to get up every day and be one of these people that I'm going to feed my horses, the majority of what they intake every day? So if that's the case, maybe you can get by on a 5, 6, 7, 10 acre property with your 3 or 4 horses or whatever it may be, and if you're willing to supplement with the feed programs that they're willing to have. Some people, man, they want to turn out and don't want, the horses that you see them all the time. There's tons of people with horses in the barbed wire fence that don't know if you brought alfalfa out there, they might run from it. You know what I mean? And so if those are the kind of people, they're probably not going to get by on a 3 or 5 acre horse property, barn or not. Topography plays a big part in it. I mean,
and it just depends on your experience. Are you a first-time buyer just trying to get something you can afford, or have you done this a while, And it's like, and I think it's important too, if you're renting and then you want to, you want to own something, obviously that's the goal and the American dream, right? So I think that, is this a stepping stone property for you to one day inherit or move that money to where you can build equity and have a 50-acre pasture? Like what are the goals of where you're at in a 2 to 5 year plan? I think it just kind of determines on the buyer of where their process is at. I mean, wouldn't you say that too?
Oh, that 2 to 5 year, I mean that 2 to 5 to 10 year plan.
Sorry.
I mean the piece of property like that we bought, for instance, and that we've developed now. When I bought that piece of property, it took me an hour and a half to walk from the front of it to the back of it. It's 20 acres.
Right.
Oh, wow, that thick.
It was grown, yeah. But I knew the lay of the land. I knew what the potential was, from being in the fence business for so long and having managed that for my dad. We had laid out so many properties for people. I could see the potential, and I had the patience, and I had the resources to keep my horses somewhere else.
Right.
And if it took me 2 years or 5 years to develop pasture and do that or whatever, and I got a whale of a deal.
Right.
I'm way less in this property. My equity on that place is great now because of the sweat equity that we put into it to be willing to do that. But I mean, like I said, I had the resources outside of it. If I'm a first-time home buyer and I got my horse and I'm paying $1,200 a month board to keep this guy somewhere, am I able to spend 30, 40, 50, 100,000 clearing a piece of land off and putting fence on it and barns and all this different stuff? And so that's where we get back to the problem solving. You tell me what your problems are and let me find the best way I can to solve it with a piece of property that fits the needs you have. And so it's not so cookie cutter.
Well, and that kind of brings up too, when you talk about solving problems, one of the things that I see out there is paying attention to zoning restrictions or something simple like how much road frontage that you need to build a home. Because me and Courtney, we've talked about this before, where somebody has this dream of putting 2 houses on a property,
Right.
and there's not the road frontage,
Right.
And that varies county to county, and
Right.
knowing that, that's one of the things I've seen come up.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you Morgan County, you're at 300 foot of road frontage. I mean, that
Per dwelling, correct?
Right. Yeah. Correct. So I mean, to do a multi-generational and trying to find 600 foot with pasture, good luck. I mean, those are diamond in the roughs. They're hard to find. And so, and I know, like you said, every county's different. I think Oconee County. I don't want to say what Oconee is. Y'all check with your county. So, but
Again,
I mean,
local knowledge.
Local knowledge.
Local knowledge.
It matters. And and getting into conservation, I mean, conservation easement, conservation use, what is that? And it saves on your property taxes. Now, unfortunately, equine is not considered as part of the conservation use program.
Right.
And so, if you have cattle, row crops,
bees.
hay, bees,
They're
whatever,
livestock.
what other agricultural, use forestry, anything like that, and that if people don't know that, that's a 10-year program. It's a covenant program that you have, and it saves on your property taxes. And so you can't breach that covenant for 10 years, and you're promising that you're going to use that for agricultural use,
But knowing that, like if you go to buy a property, the property that I bought was in a conservation.
Correct.
And I knew there was going to be restrictions on that property for a set amount of time.
Right.
When you're going to buy, you need to make sure that if those restrictions are in place, is that something that's still going to fit for your needs?
Right.
Is it going to prohibit you or is it going to benefit you?
Right.
That's the two questions.
Right. Well, and then just to add to that is your acreage. The number, how much acreage is required, and each county has a different specific acreage requirement. So, check with your tax assessors, your local tax assessor's office, and see what the conservation use is.
And also ADUs. I mean, when you start talking about how many animals you can keep on a property.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's going to vary. I mean, it's going to vary not only from county to county, but it's going to vary from city to city within a county.
Right.
Technically, I live inside the thriving metropolis city limits of Arnoldville, Georgia.
Ooh,
you know what I'm saying? And we have a stop sign. We don't have any lights, but we have a stop sign. And But, ours is pretty lax. You get to, you say you get to Walnut Grove over here, Walton County, or get to Madison, where they've got the historic district and stuff, whatever. You start putting 2-3 horses in your backyard, there might be somebody come pay you a visit.
Right.
And you better know that stuff before you get into it. And that's where a good agent will, they'll you need to figure all that out before we get up front.
Right.
It kind of makes me go back when y'all were talking a minute ago. You're talking about the COOV and the property tax. So many people buy a property and they're like, this property costs me, just use round numbers. It cost me $400,000. This is what my payment's going to be. Okay, taxes, insurance.
Right.
That's all stuff you have to go through and you have to plan for. We're not financial planners, but we set you up to where when you talk to your financial planner, you make sure there's enough money in the checkbook every month to stroke that and take care of it. And it gets back to the animal use. We all know the cost of things have gone crazy. You start maintaining these animals. What's it cost to feed them? What's it cost to take care of your barns and take care of your property? So, but as far as how many animals you can put on a property, it gets back to lifestyle. And it's different in different parts of the world. You see a lot of these Texas barn dominium type things, and they've got these run-in sheds, and these horses never see a blade of grass. And they're fat and slick and pretty and as healthy as one you've ever seen. And then you've got some that are out on 100 acres that are the same or could be the other end of the spectrum. And so it's a lifestyle thing. It gets back to that. But then when you start talking about the restrictions that the government will put on those things, that's where you have to just hash that out before you get to the closing table.
Well, one of the things I've seen is, a lot of people go out and they find that perfect piece of property and we're going to build. And they've got this beautiful spot picked out they're going to build on. They can just see it in their mind. This is where the house is going to go and the barn's going to go over here. And then we start getting into county regs. Well, you're not far enough back. You got setbacks that are an issue. Or one that I've recently learned a lot about is the ground perk.
Oh, yeah.
Can you have a septic tank? Like, you may want your house there, but if that ground doesn't perk, there's no septic tank. So now you're pumping we're getting into engineering projects at this point in time, or that's not where the house can go. So, let's talk a little bit about that. Things you want to pay attention to if you're going to buy raw land, you want to build. This is a whole nother. The whole part of the due diligence process.
Right, exactly. And you want to make sure, and this gets a little bit, not to be too complex about it, but you want to make sure that your agent is protecting your earnest money and putting that into the special steps on the offer that, if this dirt perks, then, we will continue. But having, your earnest money is your good faith saying, okay, I'm serious about this property. That earnest money goes into an escrow account, and usually I let our closing attorney hold that. We never touch the money. But with that being said, you'll have your 10-day due diligence, so you check the property, check the house, whatever.
Well, and even that can vary when you negotiate the contract. It can be 10 days. You can
7
negotiate.
Day. Yeah. However, all of this is negotiable. Everything, and you want something that we're an agent where they can think outside the box and how to help you. But I think with a perk test, you have to, 30 days or all earnest money goes back to the buyer, if it doesn't perk, just to protect you on that,
And that perk test is where a good agent and their relationships can be something that can pay you back to.
Absolutely.
Not to give away the secret sauce, as we were talking about before we
Right.
started or whatever, but like having a perk test guy that will answer your phone call and not tell you it'll be 4 to 6 weeks is a great resource. We send our perk test guy really nice Christmas presents.
Right.
Well, I was just thinking about that, like on surveys. I got a survey guy, but if you're looking at a property and like you get into Christmas time and you need a survey,
Yeah. What are you gonna?
and they're like, we'll get to you in February.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, hold up, this ain't gonna work.
Right.
And same with the perks. They're like, we'll be there in February.
Exactly.
And I mean, you want to have several of those. We want to try to suggest people options and do stuff, whatever. A lot of times those relationships can just come through handy.
Yes.
That's
surveyors,
attorneys,
home
attorneys.
inspectors, attorneys.
Yeah, that's the team that you get with a good buyer's agent.
Well, and then that even goes into, if you got the perk test, now we got to get water.
Right.
You need water on a farm.
Yeah.
And having somebody that has some idea, if we drill, Like, are you city water, or if we drill, are we going to have a chance of getting water? Are we going to end up with 2 gallons a minute and can't flush the toilet and run dishwasher at the same time, you know?
Right. Well, and trusting that, hey, they're not going, being able to trust that person that's drilling the well too, that you can have good faith in. So.
Well, and if we're just being honest, I mean, if Courtney, and I think Courtney's going to nod her head really big when I say this, we've learned a lot of things. My dad had a phrase, and the phrase was, let me get this right now. Good judgment comes from experience. Most experience comes from poor judgment.
Yes.
Okay? And
like that.
there's a lot of stuff we've learned with some time in the industry that, we might have learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And I won't say that either one of us have ever had something where we just completely, she and I are both, let me put it this way. Courtney, I know, I will promise you, is so good at her job and so honest that if she ever did do something wrong, she found 100 different ways to make it up, to make sure that it's right. But there's some things you learn. Every time you do a real estate transaction, you learn something new.
They're never the same.
You learn something new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's a big part of it, is that we've been through this experience. I mean, when you buy a tract of land, I mean, it helps to have closed 20-something of them last year and 100-something of them in the last 5 years.
Well, and it's no different than our business on the vet side. I can't tell how many times I've said, now you think you're going to want to do this, but you don't. And you can ask me how I know.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
I have failed plenty.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing on property. I mean, when you make that mistake and you're like, all right, we're not going to make that one again.
Yeah, you'll learn real quick. Like,
Yes.
I mean, because we've had a deal where on the can I talk about that?
Yeah, we had a deal on conservation that we closed in the wrong entity,
So,
and it was.
And also, just note to self and all the listeners out there: if you have an income producing entity, you cannot purchase that property in CUVA. So
No, you cannot.
you cannot. So
and that was a last minute deal. Going back to relationships,
Right.
you had an attorney that was
I had
able
an-
to clean this
exactly.
up quickly.
Excellent.
Relationships
Yes.
with the people at the county tax assessor's office
Exactly.
that allowed us to get this done, or they could have been a big mess.
It could have been.
Oh, the biggest
Coulda
one
cost us.
the biggest one I ever had was a guy was going to do a 1031, never told me about it.
Right.
And so he was selling this property. I had it listed for him, doing all this or whatever. And I thought he was just selling it, getting out and whatever. Well, he was buying another property that he'd had another deal and another agent on. I didn't know anything about it. He was doing 1031. He takes his money out of the deal, and he goes to do it on the other one. They're like, well, you got to make sure you pay all that income tax. And I said, no, I'm doing 1031. No, if you're doing 1031, you can't hold on to the money. You have to have a separate entity that holds that money. And boy, you talk about.
And that has to be done before the close.
And I mean, to be fair, it wasn't my. I mean, I was.
You didn't know, right?
But let me tell you what I do every single time I sell a piece of property for somebody now.
You ask
them if they're going to do a 1031.
Yeah, for our listeners out there, if you're not sure what a 1031
That's what I was
is,
gonna say,
we can go through that real quick because some people may be selling their personal home and buying a horse farm, and so let's talk a little bit about what that 1031 is, because it's got some major benefits, huge benefits if done correctly.
Well, you've got your capital gains. So, building equity that's the goal, right? Like that's how we build wealth. That's getting out of a rental, going into, having home ownership. But in those 2 years, let's see how I can explain this.
There's certain situations where you have to pay capital gains tax.
Correct.
There are.
Correct.
I mean, to be a little vague about it. And then there's places where you don't.
Right.
So we're talking about situations where you would have to pay capital gains.
Right,
And
right.
then-
And in those properties of 1031, your capital gains is, always talk with your CPA. Never, I don't give that advice, but usually it's about 20%, right? About,
Somewhere
would you
in there.
say, about 20% of, and your capital gains is what the equity that you've gained in that, that time frame.
appreciation and value.
Yes, exactly. The appreciation of value. And so you're going to pay 20% on that gain. So a lot of people, investors, people that are, have properties, I guess it would be income producing properties, they take that 1031 and they roll it into another property to, would you say avoid?
It's a like kind exchange.
That's
where
right.
you're
Exactly.
It's a tax deferral.
Tax
It's a
deferral, that's the
deferral.
word I'm
you're
looking
going to pay
for.
it eventually.
Exactly, exactly. You will pay it, but you are deferring it for now. So, and it has to be like kind property. It can't be
You have to spend
relatives.
the same amount of money, at least or more.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Arm's
the
length
biggest
transaction.
thing, the biggest thing that gets people hung up on 1031s is that you can't accept the funds. So like when you sell property A and going to buy property B, when you go to the closing, you close on it, you do whatever, that money does not go in your checking account. It goes in the...
That is good. I did not know that.
Oh,
That is really good to know.
Biggest
You
thing.
have a
You do not
intermediary, right? That's the word, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
So I guess there's I can add them to my list because I was always told you never lie to your doctor and you never lie to your attorney.
Right.
And you tell them everything. So now I'm going to say you don't lie, or you make sure you tell your agent everything.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a huge thing.
Well,
it's not even tell. I don't want to say lie because I don't think people.
They're not lie, but
there's a lot of people that
tell them
just,
everything.
Well, and so many people are want to be personal about their business, and they I get it. You don't want everybody to know all your business and do what you're doing, do whatever. But there's just so many more ways we can help people because we've seen things like this, or we've seen things go on, or do whatever. There's so many ways. Or even if it's not something like we don't handle taxes, I pay somebody to do my taxes.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't touch it, don't understand it, don't want to understand it. I know that there's such a thing as a write-off, and if I keep up receipts, I get something.
Yep.
But if you are doing something, and I know there's tax implications to it because I've seen it before, I can put you in front of the right people
Right.
that then can give you the right advice and then maybe save you, and in instances, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Correct.
Yeah, because that's a big thing is when you have those connections, you hear that thing come up and you're like, hold up a minute. Let me help you. You're going to make this one phone call. And you're going to be very pleased you did.
Well, and it can even go down to, like, I've got one farmer that, what price per acre he accepts for what it will do for him and what he's paying in taxes. Like, hey, are you going to make it up on this backside if you go ahead and take this offer? Or do you just hang tight and get what you want for it? I think all of that plays into effect.
And we can have a whole nother conversation on a whole nother day for a whole nother podcast about how many things people do about taxes.
Right.
Decisions people make solely based on taxes.
Right.
Well, and that's one I tell people all the time. I was like, I always joke, it's kind of like the truck analogy. All right, I'm fixing to pay $10,000 in taxes, but if I go buy a $50,000 truck, I can save $10,000 in taxes.
Right.
Well, if you don't need a truck, you're basically spending $50 to save $10.
Yeah.
Pay the $10 and put the $40 in your pocket.
Exactly.
Is that the girl math thing? I'm gonna get in trouble with it. Girl, where I bought it. It was on 70% sale.
Yeah, I had to have it.
I said that about a horse recently. It was a good deal. They're like, but was it really?
Yeah, that is. There's definitely some girl math, and I have seen it.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that,
math.
I'll say the reason I know that is because I was that guy. You talk about ask me how I know, and I remember waking up when I was like, I bought what to save. This is stupid.
Yeah.
This is stupid. I could have invested that and had it back in a couple years. That's dumb.
That's funny.
But again, that's
what
experience.
We do. That's what we do. Yeah.
That's right.
Experience and that wisdom you gain from it. So what kind of getting back to some of the things we look at, what are some other things that y'all commonly encounter that you would say like red flags? Like when you're looking at a property, if this comes up, you need to understand this is a red flag. Are there any things that y'all have seen that really throw any of those red flags out there?
I'd say maybe road frontage. We've discussed that, but, what do they want to do with the property? Easements, I think that's another one that can.
Ooh, easements.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about easements. That's a good topic.
Yeah.
What exactly is an easement?
So an easement's going to be, there's a 1,000 different kinds of them, but
high level.
But in essence, an easement is where someone else, when you buy a piece of property, what you're buying is not only the dirt, the trees, the air around it, whatever, the buildings that may be on it, but you're also buying the rights to it. You're buying the use of it, whether it be timber rights, mineral rights, just the rights of enjoying it and being happy, So an easement is when somebody else has some access to the rights of your property. And it may be an easement where they have access, their property is behind yours. They get to use your driveway as part of their access to it, and you can't deny them access because they have a
You can't be landlocked.
easement,
Right.
And so that's the essence of it. There's 100 different ways you can go with that. If you can imagine anybody or any entity doing anything on your property that is not something you're part of, it can be an easement. And so, and some easements, people, are actually beneficial to all parties involved. You know, I mean, the one that I would think of is we did a property split on about 300 acres just here recently near home, and we did some like 20 to 75 acre tracts off of this deal. And the way it was, it didn't have a ton of road frontage, so we did some easements through there that people had access to it. And the easements went down the property line, so they weren't necessarily encroaching on any of the property. But so in essence, the easement was the driveway. And so it went down the property line, didn't really cut your property in half or do whatever, but you could use it. Well, the benefit of it was that, so there's 3 people on this easement. They're all maintaining the road. So they all split the cost of maintaining that road. It would be gravel, maintenance, you know, scraping it.
And it was actually done really nice. I showed some of that property.
Right.
I was like, it's actually done pretty cool.
And so there are some easements that are beneficial, you know, because otherwise, I mean, in our area and where we were, it's hard to find a 75-acre tract.
Right.
And so the back tracts of this place were 75 acres. The easement made it possible.
I think about a property I looked at when I was first moving to this area from Kentucky, and you know, it was a beautiful property. It was off the road, beautiful house, had everything we wanted. And again, my buyer's agent at the time really helped me out because he said, "Now, Dan, you don't have an actual driveway. You have an easement." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Well, hold up. This was a family compound, and it still is a family compound. Everybody here is family. This guy got in a fight with his relatives, and so he's moving. So you're going to be in the back of a family compound with an easement."
There can be bad ones, yeah.
And he's like, "This has got a lot of risk. This has got a lot of risk because they may decide they don't like that driveway. Yeah. You're going to win, but what you got to go through."
That's the point: is knowing your rights and knowing what you have and what you don't have, and that's where back to the whole agent thing, and back to kind of your original question. There's some things that scare you. You know, easements don't scare me up front.
Right.
The knowledge that comes with knowing what the easements entail and all that stuff can make you not be scared of them at all. Some places, like just like that instance I just told you about, can make you where you actually appreciate them.
Right.
But it's something, there's always a but, right? But the but is you investigate them beforehand. You check them out. You make sure. I mean, in that situation, you know, even if Grandpa gets ticked with you and wants to, if he goes up there and throws a gate across your driveway because it's an easement, does he have a legal right to do that? Can you call the law? Can you cut the chain off of it and keep going? You know. I mean, is that something you want to deal with? Probably not. But what are your rights to actually taking?
Yeah, because that was the thing. Like we would have had the rights.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, what could have I had to go through?
Is that what you want?
Is that what I want to deal with when I try to go home to my peaceful place?
Right. Well, and how do you find an easement? And just make sure that you've got an updated plat that within the last 10 years that can show that, hey, there's a easement here on the property. You know.
And back to kind of your original question about what are some red flags, if we're getting into some more of those. Like, I think it's, for me, I could sit here and tell you about 1,000 red flags. It's kind of like it's kind of like one of those things that when you see it, you know it.
Right.
And there's certain things. I mean, like, so the first part of my career, just getting started and getting going, I sold a lot of houses. Had a lot of buyers. You do a lot of buyers when you first start out. That's the easiest way really into the business is to help buyers until you start getting some listings. I sold a lot of houses, and just there's certain things about houses that are consistent. Roofs, crawl spaces. Crawl spaces are in Georgia are like, I tell people all the time, they're like armpits. They're sweaty.
Yes.
They're going to be sweaty.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how sweaty and can you maintain it.
Right.
Can you put deodorant on it or not? And so, I mean, there's just certain things that you see enough. There's consistent patterns because, you know, although everything is unique and each property is unique, there are consistent things that go on. And access to me, back to your not only road frontage, but topography. Man, I mean, I can't tell you, and that's maybe the one thing, like if in my personal experience from my place, the topography, I have a creek that runs through the middle of my place, and we've built a pond now, but for the first 5 years we lived there, it was mud hole.
Right.
You know, in that spot. And it was an acre of land that had no use to us, that we paid the same amount for as what's now pasture or something. And it worked out great for us. We love our little pond, and I bait my ducks in there and drink my coffee and watch wood ducks. You know, I mean, it's probably my favorite part of my place. But, you know, if that was sitting where I had to build a driveway across it, topography makes a huge difference. Back to your thing about the barn being down in the hole. I mean, topography is a huge thing about a piece of property.
And I can tell you that also can depend on where you are, because we looked at a property up in the mountains one time, and it was 50 acres on a river, and I was like, hot dog. And it was like great price. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Well, what they didn't tell you is that came with $100,000 bridge, so you could cross over the river. And then the rules and regulations so you could cross over the river.
Right.
And that if it floods, you no longer have a bridge. And again, topography, great property.
Yeah. Well, and what it's going to cost, I've got a track right now that it's been for sale for a while, and I'm like, man, and the wives, they're having a hard time seeing the vision, so I called my buddy, and I was like, hey, Brooks, what can I do? Help me. I'm like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, so I'm like, I got to change it up. What can I do? And he's like, he's a grader and all of that, and so he's like, yeah, let's come out there and look at it. And yesterday I rode out there, and I'm like, man, this looks so much better already. But we're going to have to bring in some dirt, and we're going to have to build up some driveways. I mean, it's not, but for the sake of my sellers, I want to get it sold for them. So,
and that's a good point when you talk about vision. When you first start looking, do you want turnkey?
Right.
Or are you willing to
do a little work?
Put a little work in, and work may not necessarily mean physical labor. It may mean writing checks.
Right.
But then you've got to see a vision.
Right.
And like we joke, I can see vision. My wife,
exactly.
she cannot see vision.
Yeah.
She looks at it, she goes,
what is it?
this is a disaster. I was like, well, can't you see this right over here? And we'll do this over here, and we'll do this. And I said, we'll change this. Like, it's like our house now. I saw it when we bought it 15 years ago. I was like, all right, I see where this is going to go. I'm going to build this here. I'm going to put a pool in over here. The shop will sit there. And I just saw it all. Right. Well, I mean, it took 15 years, but
it was in your mind.
When I first pulled Lauren off the side of the road at our place now, and she couldn't even walk onto the place.
Yep.
She's like,
oh boy, she trusted me a lot. And some people don't have that.
Right.
No.
And there's somebody for everything, and there's something for everybody.
Right.
And it gets back to the problem solving aspect of things. When I'm going to list a property, are these people willing? Your people were willing to spend some money on some grading, to put some driveways in, have a little presentation. Are my people not able to do that? Are they willing to sell it? And so maybe do we adjust the price a little bit where those people that coming in can have that vision and do something? Yeah, this piece of property is worth $10,000 an acre if we do A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, I got one right now that's 118 acres. I'm going to list probably this afternoon or tomorrow. And the back half of that property, there's a creek that the bridge is washed out on it, and we can't get back there to it. And it's probably the nicest piece of the property. And the guy's like, well, I think I just want to try it first. He said, but then if we don't get much bite, maybe I'll spend $10,000 or $15,000 to fix that and make it where people can get back there and see it. And so we made a pricing strategy and approach to go that route. If he was willing to bust that money in there, spend $10,000 or $15,000, does it pay him back 20 or 25?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does it make the process quicker on him? So then he's paying less interest on his loan that he's paying on that place. Just different things like that really.
And I like, Rhonda Smith, who I work with, she's very experienced, been in the business a long time. She sold mostly historic homes, but, I was pitching her this idea of like, I don't know what else to do with this track. I've got to think of something though. Like we've got to do something different. And she says, Courtney, it's like bumper cars. She was like, you just keep trying things, keep working at it until something's going to work eventually. And so, check with the neighbors, like especially if you're a seller, if you're trying to sell a piece of property, more than likely the neighbors have the most interest in your property and they're willing to pay the most for it because they want to be able to protect whatever their investments are or control however that property will go forth, So, with this, especially this tract of land, like I checked with all the neighbors, hey, would y'all want to buy 10 off of here? And nothing was really working. So I was like, all right, next thing is vision.
Vision, like I said, it's important.
So, you're right.
I mean, we bought our house from the bank.
Yeah.
So it was a foreclosure. So you had to have some vision.
Vision, yeah.
And like you talked about, like Jake, my wife just trusted me this vision would work out. But there was a lot of faith put in because she's like, I just do not
Well, that's most of my conversations is these, especially the men that come out of Atlanta, they want to have a hobby farm. They want to come to Morgan County. The wives love it because it's historic Madison. It's classy. It's got shopping. It's got all the things. But the husband's like, man, I'm trying to get my wife. She just can't see it. So I text the guy yesterday. I'm like, I'm creating vision for you. Don't worry. Yeah.
and some people just don't have it. You take some, there are some buyers that can drive you crazy, in our business, just being blunt. There's some of them that you'll show them 50. They tell you, okay, well, these are our non-negotiables. We want a 3-2, and we want this many acres, and we want a garage, and we want an A, B, C, D, or we want a horse barn, or we want, got to have a pasture and do all this thing. And so you'll send them, and we'll show them property for a year. And there's something wrong with every one of them. And then they'll send you one day and you'll be like, yeah, they're not going to be interested in this thing. Go show it to them, and by gosh, they fall in love with it. And it checks 2 out of the 7 boxes that you've been looking at for a year. Right. But that was their vision. It wasn't,
They could see the vision there.
They could see their vision. And maybe that's a better way to put it, is everybody has their own vision, and sometimes it's not
what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and to add to that, you want to make sure as a buyer that you're within the market range. Like, you got some people, they're like, I want to spend $10,000 on 50 acres in Morgan County. Ain't going to happen, sir. No. Like we've got to get to reality. And it's not that, just you got to know the market prices.
Well, again, that's one of the things that I really like what you said, Jake, earlier in the podcast. Like, y'all are in the real estate business, you're in the problem solving business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what is your goal? And then how can I help you get there?
Exactly.
And I think that's a lot of, I think that's just finding good people in general. Somebody that you can tell a goal to, whether it be a real estate agent, whether it be an attorney, CPA, veterinarian, farrier. What's your goal?
Right.
And then how do we help you get there?
Right. And I can speak, like, for me and Jake, I know, but, we're not just trying to make the sale. We truly, like Rhonda says, we want to see you in Ingalls or at the grocery store, and we want you to come speak to us,
Right.
So we truly want to meet those goals in the right way. It's not just to make the deal, And so I think that's important as an agent. You want to make sure that they have enough care,
Well, when they pick up the phone and call you the second time.
Yeah.
Our little unofficial motto at Irish St. Down, we work with some great people over there. Jessica's our broker, and we started with Miss Iris, and you can't find a person that doesn't love her
right,
and respect her, and she has done and she's probably done way too many things for free that she shouldn't have done. But our little motto is that you help people and the money works itself out.
Absolutely.
You help people and the money works itself out. We never once worry, and that's why this whole, we get off in the weeds, but this whole lawsuit thing they had about commissions and stuff, it made no sense to us,
right?
Because the commission was never why we were there.
Yeah.
Yes, like I said earlier, money is the root of it, and all things get back around to money. And eventually, we make some money, and we make decent money, but we're helping people. And if I didn't make a dime doing it, but it was the right thing to do, and maybe it comes back and pays me back later.
Right.
It's a win.
I had a guy, Edward Martin. He was a farrier over in Scotland, and he was like 5th generation smithy. This guy was around when you were still hammering out plows with hammers and coke forges. He built everything by hand. And I was young in my career, and I'll never forget Edward saying, he said, if you do good work, you charge a fair price. You'll never lack for either. And that's the honest truth. And that's the way we've built this business here. That's the way y'all built your business. And the money works itself out.
Right, exactly. And, I was a hairstylist for 15 years before I got into the real estate. I've been in real estate now 4 years. But that's what behind the chair, day in and day out, 7:30 in the morning haircuts to 7 at night colors. It taught me that. It taught me relationships. It taught me that, hey, it matters more about the people than it does anything, And that was that character building in that time frame that everything is the Lord uses for good, and in that 15 years that's what it taught me. And so then when I get into this business, I'm like, man, that's what all that was. I'm like, and successful people, that's what you do. It's honest work. It's being good to people. Your name is everything,
I say it all the time. People say I got into vet med because I like animals better than people. I was like, no. You're in the people business.
Absolutely.
You're in the people business.
Yes, 100%.
Once you embrace that, and I find a lot of joy. One of our big things here is take care of people.
Right. Right.
You know, I always say,
and y'all do that, absolutely.
You know, I always say that our best day is our customer's worst day. Unfortunately, we're in that business. I never thought about that till a guy said it. And so then we started focusing like, how do I make your day better? And Courtney, I've worked with you on some deals, and I mean, you made my day better.
Right.
Like we ran into a mess, you got it fixed.
Right.
And I'll tell you, and you didn't have to.
Right.
Well, we in our business, you know, they say there's 3 D's that cause the majority of real estate transactions.
Right.
Death, divorce, and diapers.
Or debt.
Dead.
Or death. Yeah, I guess you could have 4.
Yeah, 40s now.
But
40s.
and there's nothing. And my kids are the greatest joy of my life. But let me tell you something. When they first get here, and you're having to figure things out, and especially if I was having to buy a house.
Oh yeah.
During that process. And I was sitting there with 2 kids. And at one point, I was telling somebody this yesterday, and it seems so long ago now, but there was a point with those twin boys, we were going through 30 to 40 diapers a day.
Man.
A day, people.
I couldn't
Help
imagine
me,
2
boys.
at once.
Okay. And if I would have had to figure out the process of going to buy a new place, pick up everything, move, all that, boy, you want somebody. I mean, I would have wanted somebody if I wasn't in, I mean, I was in that business. But if I was doing that as the general layman, I would want somebody to make that process better. I mean, and it's just all of them. There is always, and it's stressful.
It is.
House selling and buying is stressful. If you're a business guy that never leaves your office and buys real estate, there's something about it that's stressful. Never mind the emotional attachment when you're actually buying your home where you may live forever.
I tell everybody, because I've kind of got into some real estate on the side, and you know, I can tell you, like, even though I've done a few of them, yes, it gets easier, but there's still a lot of, you still go through those same emotions. So we're kind of wrapping things up here. One of the ways that I always like
I don't
to,
want to quit.
we'll do more of them.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Part 2. We'll do a part 2. Well, one of the things I always like to close with, if you could give any advice to a future buyer out there, what would it be, Courtney?
You know, if just make sure that you're working with somebody that you can trust. I think that it goes back to that. Somebody that you know that they have your best interest at heart, that they, like we've talked about, they have a team to build, so that they can trust in. I mean, a lot of times I don't know the answers to a lot of things, but hey, I know a guy that does, and I got a phone call, and hey, I'll make sure that I can get the answer for you. So I think as you're buying property, you just want to make sure that you can trust somebody that's going to help you in that process,
Jake, what would you say if you're going to sum it up?
Other than what Courtney had to say, because I mean that's just great.
Oh, yeah.
Advice. But I think my biggest thing that I would tell people, and that I try to train into people as I start to work with them, is that every action has a reaction. And so the biggest thing we can do to make this smoother, better, faster, more affordable, all the things you want it to be, is to be prepared. And so that when we get to the position of having to make these critical decisions, it's not the first time we thought about it. And so if we're ahead of the game, and that's what a good agent, in my opinion, should be doing for you, is to be ahead of the game. And like when they come to look at whether it's listing your house or whether it's you buying a house, if you're buying a house, they get you in front of the right lender that gets you, pre-approved and this and that and all the other, and make sure you've got your money right and you've got your down payment and all these things. Get all that set up so that we're not making hasty decisions. We're looking at a $375,000 property when really we can only afford a $300,000 property.
Right.
Don't let the time for critical decisions be the first time you thought about it.
Right. And something I can add to that too is just seek good counsel. If the people that are, that truly are successful people want to see other people succeed. And so, seek wise counsel. If you respect someone that's built their business or built whatever, equity, however that looks like, ask them advice, because more than likely they're an open book. They're willing to share. And to me, I love those type conversations. So, if you don't know, ask somebody that's done it. I love the older generation. I'm like, we need to invest, and they need to back invest in us as, these younger folks. And I think that's, don't ever be afraid to ask somebody how they were successful. So.
That's a great point you brought up. And, when you said seek wise counsel, I mean, that was said by the wisest man that ever walked, and that was Solomon. And he said seek wise counsel.
Absolutely.
I think that may be paraphrased, but it's in there.
It's in there.
But, one of the things I tell everyone, when I get into a situation that I'm unsure of and that I'm going into something completely new, most of the time you don't know what questions to ask. And so what I would tell people, if you're looking for that agent to represent you, find out what their character is. Find out, can you trust them? Because if you can answer those questions, like, you know what, I trust them. I've interviewed them. They're wise on what they do. They're knowledgeable. They're going to be fair. I can trust them. Then the rest is kind of details. Because if they're good at what they do, they're going to walk you through this process.
Right.
And so I say, step one, exactly what y'all just said. Find somebody that has the knowledge that you can trust. And most people, you can figure that out pretty quick. Are they here for a commission, or are they here to look out for me?
And usually it's by them being not afraid to tell you the bad things that can happen.
Right.
The bad things.
Everybody can talk about the good.
My favorite thing to hear from somebody when I'm, whether it be an attorney, a CPA, or a real estate agent, I always try to find that one question. And when they're like, you know what, I don't know the answer, but let me make a call.
Right, right.
And when they call me back with the answer, I was like, you know what, I can trust that person because they know what they don't know.
Yes, yes.
But they knew somebody that did. And that means they're not going to blow smoke up my butt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that or not. Yeah, it's my podcast. I can say it. Well, we got to wrap things up today. I really appreciate y'all being here today. It's been a great podcast. And thank y'all for being here. I know it's a little different than what we normally do. But from all of us here at the Equine Vet Connect and Countryside Equine Hospital, we appreciate y'all listening. April, thanks for doing all the recording. Casey, thanks for the editing. And thanks for all our great listeners out there to make this possible. And y'all have a great week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.